Hey, welcome everyone. AI in Education, Custom Built GPTs, September Showcase Edition. So happy we're showcasing the work of Kyle Chalupczynski today from Penn State. And we just have an hour with him and yeah, so much to share with you. So I'll be really, really quick. And main thing to share with you is a link to our meeting notes. If you've been here before, you know that's the place where we put everything, including links that Kyle is sharing with you from his work. And today, if you have questions for him, and we're hoping to have time for Q&A, please let's use the Q&A feature to keep them organized. Of course, feel free to use the chat anytime for anything. But if you have specific questions, add them to the Q&A and we'll do our best to get to them after his presentation and demo. Kyle is a professor of management information systems at Penn State Behrens Black School of Business and a 2024-2026 TLT faculty fellow. And I was lucky to learn about his work from Tiffany Petruccini. I'm not sure she's here today, but she connected me with him. And once I saw what he was doing, I thought, yes, you should really get to see how he's crafted the bots and the simulations he's working on and how carefully he has done that. There's so much to it that, yes, I'm going to soon pass it over to him. And a little more about Kyle. He has nearly a decade of business analyst experience, and he has that practical industry perspective to AI implementation in education. Since adopting generative AI in November 2022, he's developed PALs. So if you're here for the PAL and learning to build your own PAL, you are in the right place. PAL stands for Personalized AI Learning Simulations Framework. And he's expanded this to include multiple specialized chatbots across various courses, which I know is what we love here in this group when we see how we can apply it through different courses, different disciplines, and different use cases. So I will turn it on to Kyle, and well, thank you all for joining us today, whether you're new or coming back. And thank you so much for Kyle for sharing his work. Over to you, Kyle.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm just going to get my screen share going here. And thank you for the introduction as well. That's going to save me a little bit of time, and that'll maybe save us some time for some extra slides or extra questions here because, yeah, my scope is a little bit ambitious here, which you'll see is kind of a thread throughout this of how I've kind of implemented these PALS solutions. So Cassandra mentioned that I have some background as a business analyst, and during that time in industry, I really fell in love with solving problems with technology. And obviously, no shortage of problems in higher ed in the AI era, right? But ironically, AI can also be the solution to those problems. So today I'm going to be talking about my PALs. PALs, again, stands for Personalized AI Learning Simulations. And so the PALS framework is really my first real attempt to reimagine how to prepare students for the AI integrated workplace. So PALS is the original PALS is a 12-week industry-specific hyper-tailored simulation where students apply all the topics and learning objectives from their e-text. Back when I was still assigning the e-text by students' own admissions, they weren't reading the e-text anymore. So decided to just, why make them spend $120 on it? Let's build some chatbots instead, right? So they apply all of those learning objectives from those 12 chapters to their own company, to their own scenarios. And it's a dual competencies approach here. So they're getting that subject matter expertise from those core learning objectives, but they're also getting the ability to strategically leverage AI as a collaborative tool. So in a way, even though none of us really knows what the future of work is going to look like, I like to say that they're at least short-term experiencing the future of work firsthand, right? the experience has been really positive overall. We did do a little bit of polling at the end of last semester, and the results were overwhelmingly positive. I don't have those results here today. I do have a real student comment though, and this one's always fun. I almost thought about framing that up on my wall because never did I anticipate. I thought maybe the students might enjoy them more than traditional assignments, but I didn't ever expect a student to say that they had fun doing the assignments. So that was really cool. They're engaging deeper. So I'm seeing they're engaging deeper with these topics and these concepts of the course because they feel more connected to the material. It's their business that they're growing throughout the semester. And they're enthusiastic, like I said. So I've even had a couple of students take their own business ideas. So I had a student that was going to business school to learn all the business ropes. He had a buddy who was going to school to learn how to install solar panels, and they were planning on starting a company. So he used that idea as the foundation for these assignments. I also had another student that whose family had a deli slash creamery. And he said, would it be okay if I use that? And I was hesitant at first because I'm thinking, I don't know how that really lends itself to some of the topics that we cover in MIS. But ultimately, because it was the first semester we were trying this out, wanted to experiment, have fun with it, I said, sure, why not? And it actually ended up being one of my favorite company profiles throughout the semester because it was essentially this 21st century data-driven deli slash creamery, which you don't really see that often. So again, just it's been fun to see the way that students have really taken to this and have started to engage with it. So to give you a little bit of a bird's eye view of this whole framework, I won't spend too much time on this because I'm going to be diving into it here, but students start out, as I mentioned a little bit there, by creating a company profile. This is a company profile that evolves throughout the semester. So each assignment throughout the semester is guided by a different specialized chatbot that is going to adapt the content of the assignment to that student's company context. And it's going to build that simulation for that workplace scenario around their company and the decisions that they've made for their company in the past. Then after each AI conversation, so after they talk to the chatbot, they have to synthesize their insights into a set of professional deliverables. And we'll take a look at what those are, but just like they would in the industry, right? So I worked with the robot to come to these decisions. Here's the decisions that I'm making. Here's why I'm making those decisions. One quick point that I want to make on this slide is the 40-60 split that's mentioned here. So this was something that I tried that was a significant shift from how I had done things in the past. In the past, I was having students submit an AI appendix with their assignments, and maybe only giving them 2 to 3 points just as the proof of, hey, here's what I did. It's now significantly shifted to where 40% of their grade is how well they engage with the chatbot. And I'll talk about what that means a little bit later on. So 40% is how well they engage, 60% is their final deliverables that they derive from that chatbot or from that conversation. So from the student's point of view, they're ready to start. They've learned about the entire framework from me. They've watched the introductory video. So they come into the PALS assignment hub and they are going to click on this company launchpad icon. This assignment hub is just built in Google Sites. And this is one of the links that I'll give you at the end here. So they click on the company launchpad. That's going to take them to the chatbot that is built on top of OpenAI's ChatGPT builder. They can, if they want more information about the chatbot, they can ask it, hey, what are we even doing here? But most students should know at this point if they were listening to me talk. So they're just going to click, let's get started. No instructions, nothing for them to worry about, right? So the chatbot's going to then ask them a series of questions. What industry or company combination interests them? And it's going to give them 10 examples. Again, they can also suggest their own if they would like. And actually, these are the 10 originals. I added 4 new industries this semester just to kind of shake things up a little bit. One is a smart sports equipment manufacturer, so something to try to maybe appeal to the athletes. A vertical farming startup, a mental health app, and then in my effort to be provocative and maybe grab the attention of students who may have otherwise been disinterested, a cannabis dispensary. So they'll answer or they'll choose their industry and their company. They'll choose their main product or service category. They'll choose their primary tech focus, the types of data that they're going to primarily collect, who their target demographics are, and then how they leverage technology for a competitive advantage. And these chatbots are very robust. So it answers any questions that students have along the way. And students are encouraged to ask questions. So if they don't know how to answer a question like, hey, who should be our target market here? I stress that they communicate that to the chatbot. Hey, I'm not sure. What are some examples that you could give me, right? So again, they're encouraged to ask questions. And again, that's something that is part of their engagement rubric that they have for that portion of the assignment. At the end of the conversation, the chatbot is going to produce this company profile for the students to download. So I tell the students to download this and guard it with their life, because again, this is going to be the foundation for every single assignment throughout the rest of the semester. And this is just a look at how that looks. It's just a simple text file. It documents all the decisions that the student made throughout that conversation and is essentially, again, the blueprint for their company. And just to point out real quick here, everything here is variable. So these are based on answers that the students provided. These company details down here, or at least these last four, those are the same for every student's company. And that's just because I needed some static variables, because those are going to impact, for instance, the fact that they have minimal existing web presence. Later on in one of the assignments, when they have to do a competitive analysis of some of their competitors' websites, that's how that comes into play there. So the whole idea is they're looking at what else is out there to determine how they want to build out their web presence. So they've had the conversation, they're submitting the link to that conversation so I can read through it. They're submitting their company profile that they've downloaded. And they're also going to complete this slide template here, this PowerPoint slide template. So this is all designed to get them. The company launchpad is a lot shorter of a conversation, a little bit simpler on the deliverables, but it's getting used to them handing in those 3 or 4 deliverables. And there's going to be one other piece of documentation that they have to submit as well. But they just fill out, again, a summary of the decisions that they made throughout that conversation. So now with that foundation, students can start on the core assignments here. And actually, I should say they're not quite ready yet. So first, they're encouraged to review, and I do cover these in the first 5 to 10 minutes of class, but they're encouraged to review all of the supporting resources that I've provided for them. So the first thing is, this is just a slide that I provide in class, but again, to help them prepare, I give them the high-level overview of what they're going to be doing, how it adds value to their business. Each assignment is also going to come with what I call a conversation guide. So I don't want to bog students down with the details. So as you'll see, there's no actual assignment instructions that I give them. But I also don't want them to feel like they're flying blind, right? So to kind of strike that balance, I tell them as long as they understand this list from a high level, they can kind of understand how that conversation is going to unfold, and they're not going to necessarily feel like they're just going into things blind. Now, when I first started using AI in the classroom, and this was pre-PALS, I probably said to students over 1,000 times that they needed to really, truly engage with AI to get good results, right? And you can probably guess by the fact that I said it thousands of times that I had little to no success just saying that, right? Students are like, well, what do you mean engage, right? So when I was creating PALS, I realized that I had to give them examples. Now I could have put on my student hat and gone through, and had the conversations with each chatbot and answered them how I would prefer students to answer them. But this is a chatbot group, right? I like chatbots. So I decided to build a chatbot instead, a little student chatbot that understood what these PALS assignments were, understood what they were being tasked with, and understood that I wanted them to answer in a certain manner. So letting it know that it was okay to say that it didn't know as long as it asked a follow-up question. So I give students an example of this before each. I kind of pull out highlights from each of the conversations that chatbot had with the PALS chatbot, and I highlight what's good about it, and make those types of recommendations. I'll just pull this up real quick as well. So students also have access to the entire conversation. So they go down to the assignment that they're on, and they can see again the highlights here, or if they click on this link, it's going to load up an image, and I can't get it to load up maximize, so they have to click it to maximize it. But that's going to be the entire conversation that student chatbot had with the PALS chatbot. Some students use these, not all students, but it does show in the students that do use them. Okay, so now they're officially ready to move on to the core PALS assignment. They have their company profile still saved. They're going to come back to the assignment hub. They're going to click on the first assignment. It's going to take them to that assignment chatbot. And all they're going to do here is upload that company profile. So the chatbot knows what the assignment is. It has that embedded in its knowledge files. Two benefits to that. So one, there's no assignments for this, or there's no instructions for the students to get overwhelmed by. So when I started doing AI integrated assignments, I was asking students to do more because they were capable of more because they were using AI. But because of that, I was providing them really detailed, sometimes 2 or 3 page assignment instructions. Doesn't matter how detailed or how handholdy they are. If you give a student 2 to 3 pages, they're going to get overwhelmed. They're not going to know where to start, and they're going to get stressed out. Not all students, obviously, but I did see that repeatedly when I was initially trying to integrate AI. So again, nothing for the students to get overwhelmed by here, and also nothing for them to feed to AI and say, hey, AI, complete this assignment for me, right? So they have to have the conversation. So they upload their company profile, they send that. So the chatbot's going to start out by doing a few things. First, it's going to read that company profile to understand the student's company. Not pictured here, but new this semester is it's going to provide them a link to the rubric. So I went and put all of the rubrics for the assignments into separate Google Sheets. So each chatbot has those links to the rubrics, and it recommends that students review those rubrics in advance. Actually, if the robot is or if the chatbot is using ChatGPT 5 thinking as the underlying model, sometimes I've actually seen it pull the rubric in and just display it in the table for them rather than just sending them the link. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But anyways, it'll provide them with the rubric. And then it's going to do some kind of front loading of the context, right? So and that's beneficial for the chatbot as well as for the students. So like I mentioned, it's going to read their company profile. It's also going to read the assignment file that it has in its project knowledge. And then it's going to explain to the student, here's what we're going to be doing. Here's how it relates to your company. Here's how it adds value to your company. Here's why it's important that we do this. Then it's going to ask them some questions. So these questions are set up kind of in a decision tollgate format. It's going to do a little bit of explaining about that step or that concept to them, and then it's going to ask them some questions related to that, or a question related to that. So here we're talking about transforming raw data into insights and information, right? So it gives them some example. This is a student that has a smart sports manufacturing company. And it tells them, here's some insights that you might be able to get if we get the right data. And it asks them, which one do you think that we want to focus on? And you can also see down here, if you're reading this, that again, the student chatbot does a really good job of communicating, hey, not sure, this is all brand new to me, here's my best guess, and then follows it all up with a question. And again, that's a pattern that I really stress that students try to kind of emulate when they're having their conversations here. So to repeat this pattern, each chatbot's maybe between 9 and 10 steps of asking them questions, explaining something to them, redirecting if they've gotten off track or if they're maybe off the mark a little bit, answering intermediate questions that they may have, if they want to unpack things, all things that are going to, again, contribute to their engagement score at the end of the day. So the more they're going back and forth, the more curious they're being, the more that they're pushing back, the more that they're questioning assumptions that the chatbot's making, all things that, as we know, are kind of best practices when working with AI. So they do that until the conversation's over. Another thing that I've added this semester is and it's not pictured here, but progress indicators. So again, just to make sure students don't feel like they're kind of diving into a never-ending conversation, it'll tell them step 3 of 10, step 4 of 10, and they seem to enjoy that. Once they complete that conversation, some chatbots will have a profile update, not all chatbots, but that will be indicated in the PALS hub by the save icon here. So when that's the case, that's going to be essentially maybe like a 200-character string summarizing the decision that they made in that assignment. So looking at the ethical guidelines for MIS assignment, that's going to have a string that says, here's our ethics best practices anytime that we're implementing information systems here. Over here, when they invent a brand new device for their company that uses large language models, they're going to have a summary of what that product is. So then in subsequent assignments, when they upload that company profile, the chatbot's going to have that additional context, and it's going to tailor those questions in that assignment to that new information that's been added there. So that profile, again, is a living, evolving document throughout the semester. Now, all of the PALS chatbots will have these two icons underneath. So one is the documentation guide, one is the PowerPoint slide. All they have to do is click those icons. That's going to download the 2 templates that they need to complete directly to their computer. Had a lot of students during the kind of the beta testing of this asking the chatbots, hey, where's the documentation guide? Where's the PowerPoint slide? And the chatbots were not aware of the documentation guide or PowerPoint slide, so the chatbots would just make one up for them, and they would submit something that was not, it was sometimes close, but not exactly what I was looking for, right? So new this semester, I've also added links to the documentation guide and PowerPoint slide to the chatbot so that it can provide those to them at the end of the conversation as well. So they'll download those onto their computer. And then what they're going to do here is go back through their conversation. They're going to pull out the key details, and they're essentially going to prove that they can speak to the decisions that they made, the recommendations that they're making, and the value that their decisions had. Ultimately, here I tell them, let's say that you're working with AI to solve some problem that your boss has tasked you with, right? That's the whole point of these assignments. That's how these assignments are set up. You're not just going to give your boss a chat transcript and say, hey, here's what I decided with the bot, right? Read through this. No, your boss isn't going to do that, right? You're also not going to say, hey, the chatbot and I decided we should do X, Y, Z, and you should just trust us on that, right? So they're going to need to show that they did their due diligence, that they understand what they did there, and that they have the research and the numbers to back that up. They're also, again, going to complete this PowerPoint slide. So where I tell them that that documentation guide is for their CEO or supervisor or manager or whoever, I tell them this is more of a snapshot, right? So this is if you were going to present your decisions or your recommendations to a group of stakeholders. These are the points that you might want to include. These bullet points up here, And then I give them kind of guidance for the talking points down here that they would make to support those bullet points. I always tell them to imagine that they're going to be presenting these at the end of the semester. We haven't had time just because of the scope of all of this, but essentially it's set up so that at the end of the semester, they can combine each of the PowerPoints from each of the individual assignments, and they have this 12 or originally 17, but now 12 PowerPoint kind of journey of their company and all the decisions that they made, something that looks really good on a portfolio. And so they submit, again, their profile, if there was a profile update for that assignment. I will say that's still the biggest issue after 2 semesters, well, 1.5 semester here, is that just many students do not understand file management. So having them figure out where the file got downloaded to, how to update that file. What I end up seeing is students will have like 37 copies of their company profile in their downloads folder. And then, as you can imagine, when it comes time to submit, they're not grabbing the right one, even if there is one with the right updates. Right? So they have their company profile, their documentation guide, that PowerPoint slide, and the link to their conversation. And they wash, rinse, repeat, and do that 12 times for each of the 12 chapters. And that's PALS in a nutshell. But as you're going to find out here, I get a little carried away sometimes, and not just when it comes to using AI image generators. So I was getting all this, again, I started piloting this or beta tested this last semester in the spring with my class, and I had two sections of 45 students each. And I was getting all this positive feedback. I was also getting all of these new ideas, some of which I was kind of implementing in that class on the fly, but other new stuff I wanted to try out. And I couldn't just let these ideas rattle around in my head for an entire semester and then wait through the whole summer to implement them this semester, right? So I started using my other courses as kind of testing grounds, trying to figure out what else I could do with this, how else it could potentially be adapted. And so the most kind of readily apparent parallel here was my business and systems analysis class. So instead of a company profile, students are creating a project profile. So instead of the company details, it's the details of, and this is a little meta here, but they choose an AI integration project. And so they have to choose the scope. What features are they going to include? What are the requirements? Who are the key stakeholders? All of that kind of stuff. So created 14 chatbots for this. I started to experiment here a little bit with gamification. Not all of the chatbots are gamified, but as one example, and I don't know if this even counts as true gamification, but one of the assignments is about how a Scrum Master essentially serves four roles on a software development project. They need to be a mentor, they need to be a teacher, they need to be a coach, and they need to be a facilitator. So as part of that PALS assignment, and it's not the only part, but as part of it, students have to design a four-headed monster or a four-headed creature, one head corresponding to each of those roles. So a mentor head, a teacher head, a coach head, and a facilitator head. And then they used image generator to create an image of that. That's one of their deliverables for that assignment. Just again, something a little bit different, hopefully something that might stick in their mind a little bit. Actually, something that I had borrowed from, not exactly because this was pre-AI, but it's an exercise that I had done when I had gone through my Scrum certification training a number of years back. So each of these Scrum PALs embodies 3 to 5 of the learning objectives from the official CSM training. And I should have mentioned that the original PALs also, they pack about 3 to 5 learning objectives apiece. But students completing after they're done with these Scrum PALs, they're ready to take their CSM certification exam. And I did have students last semester that did that and were successful. So that was kind of a cool little proof of concept. I just need somebody to appreciate these, only because I'm not sure that the students always do. They might, but they don't say it. So the first one, the one on the left over here, is for the sprint retrospective chatbot. And for those that are not familiar, in a sprint retrospective on a software project, it's where we sit down and we reflect. Essentially, we take a look at what went well, what didn't go well, and what we need to do differently. So that reflection component is captured in our Chrome chatbot here. This is probably the avatar that I've taken the longest, or that I had to do the most iterations on to come up with that. And I just really like this one. This is the Scrum Master as the servant leader. And I don't know, this has kind of little Pixar vibes to me. I always like that. Okay, so moving on to one of my classes where I initially kind of struggled to figure out a way to fit AI in. It's a customer relationship management with Oracle NetSuite. And the reason I say I struggled is because it's primarily a lab-based class. Almost 90% of the work is students are in Oracle NetSuite, doing, configuring the system, performing different transactions. So the problem or the challenge here was that in those lab-based courses, a lot of times it feels like, or at least seems like, students aren't really understanding the underlying business value or the strategic implications of what they're doing in the labs. The labs are fairly detailed, so in theory, they can just kind of blindly click through, make sure they're pressing all the right buttons, and not really having any idea what they're actually doing, right? So these are essentially strategy chatbots. So they transform those lab exercises into strategic business conversations. So it's here's the business strategies that your lab work supports, and here's the business value that you're producing. So again, instead of just clicking through steps, they understand why companies invest millions in ERP systems, and they understand how the behind the scenes configuration impacts the organizational success. Now I still had more ideas, and I had students that with that last set of chatbots had kind of expressed that they were getting a little bit overwhelmed because I had them still doing their original lab assignments, and I had them having the conversations with the chatbot, and they were submitting documentation guides. So they said that was a little bit too heavy. I thought that was a fair assessment. So within the same class, I did my first implementation of automatic scoring or self-grading chatbots. So these chatbots all have built-in rubrics. They're designed to be a little bit shorter, so they're not as overwhelming. They give students their score at the end. And again, because they're shorter, students can, if they don't like their initial score, it's not a heavy lift to go back in and have the conversation again. And there's no other deliverables. So they just give me the link to their conversation. Low lift from my standpoint as far as grading. I can just go in and see what score they received from the chatbot. And again, it doesn't really get in the way of their core work for that course. So at this point, I was getting a little bit tired out, especially because there is some level of maintenance and tweaking with these chatbots, right? So during, I think maybe my third set of chatbots, I came up with some custom instructions to make the chatbots refuse to complete the deliverables for the students, because I had students that would get to the end of the conversation, upload a documentation guide, say, hey, complete this for me. It wouldn't be great, but it would be passable work, right? Because the chatbot had all the necessary context. So I had that change, I had that modification. That meant I had to go back through 30 some other chatbots and make those changes. Same thing when I decided to add the rubrics and the documentation guides and the links, 30 other changes that I had to make. I also added some safeguards to try to keep students from using AI the way that I did to have the conversation for them. So certain things that the chatbots will now look for and say, for example, hey, nice, that's a really thorough answer, but I want to know what you think, not what some other AI thinks. So with one more course to go, and with the models getting smarter, I revisited an approach that I had initially abandoned when I first started creating pals, and that was one pal or one chatbot to rule them all. And so this is a similar course. This is another Oracle NetSuite course, but it's inventory and warehouse management in Oracle NetSuite. So first thing I did was I had about close to 30 labs throughout the semester in this assignment. I took those, fed them to AI, boiled them down to 13 different assignments with a common kind of narrative that weaves throughout them. So it follows this company called TechFlow and their growth story throughout the semester. And again, here's why what you're doing is valuable to this company. Here's why it's going to set this company up for success. So students are guided by this TechFlow mentor again throughout the semester. They complete their regular lab work that they normally would have completed. And then they tell the chatbot what assignment they did. So, hey, I just completed week 1, or hey, I just completed assignment 1. And the chatbot's going to ask them just between 4 to 5 questions. So again, this isn't intended to be a heavy lift for them. It's just intended to make sure they understand what they're doing. So these are some of the examples that the chatbot has in its custom instructions. Again, these are generic to give the chatbot an idea. It is going to tailor them to what they actually did for that assignment, because the chatbot is aware of all the assignments. So I have each of the assignments uploaded as a markdown file here. One quick clarification I wanted to make with this, just if you're wondering about, or if you're not wondering about, the markdown files here versus, well, why aren't they PDFs or why aren't they text files? So my understanding of this is that any file that you upload to a custom chatbot, especially, well, specifically in ChatGPT's GPT builder, if it has a pink icon, like a text file would, or like a Word document would, or a PDF would, that content becomes part of the system prompt. So every time you prompt that chatbot, it's reading your prompt, plus it's reading the custom instructions, plus it's reading every single pink document that it has down here. So the blue icons here, what that does in these markdown files, what that means is that the chatbot's only going to access those when needed. So I don't have it reading through all 13 or 14 assignments every single time that I send it a message. So if your chatbots, if you have any chatbots, if your chatbots have files in their knowledge files, and you find them kind of chewing through their context windows and going off the rail quicker than you might expect, that could be one of the reasons, is that the knowledge files are clogging it up. Again, the students are just graded on their engagement here. So they really need to engage to earn full credit. Most of the students at this point would have had me for MIS 204, the intro to MIS. So they know what that means. They don't need as much guidance there. I've seen really good engagement with these. And again, they're not intended to be difficult questions. So this is kind of funny. It's funny to me. So I asked ChatGPT with thinking turned on to create an image where the robots were puppeteering me, Weekend at Bernie's style, right? And so in the chain of thought, as I was reading how it was coming to this, I saw that it decided to have, what's going on here is the robots are using the wires to shock me, to make my muscles move. And that was an independent decision that ChatGPT made. So from time to time when people tell me that AI can't be creative, I always have to kind of raise my eyebrow there. I thought that was pretty creative. So not just for coursework, right? I ran out of courses at this point, so I had to start using this somewhere else. This hasn't gotten a whole lot of use yet. This is, I have started pointing some of my advisees towards this, but all of these chatbots down here will work independently and without a course profile. But what they can do, if they want to save themselves some time, is click on this. It's going to take them to, instead of a company profile builder, instead of a project profile builder, it's going to build a profile on them. So it's going to ask some questions about themselves. What are their hopes and dreams? What is their major? What classes are they taking? It's essentially a mixture of a profile and a portfolio. And again, that's going to, they can, let's say that they've got a networking event coming up and they want to go through a simulation. They can upload their company profile here. That networking navigator is going to know everything about that student up to that point. They can say, hey, I've got this networking event coming up. Here's the companies that I'm planning on talking to. And again, it's going to tailor that experience towards them, towards their experience, towards their communication preference, all of those types of things. From a faculty standpoint, so I have some faculty-facing tools, so they can similarly come in here, create a profile for one of their courses, and then use it with one of the chatbots like the PALS creator. So normally, if somebody wants to make their own PALS assignment, they would need to tell the chatbot all about their class, what level it was, what the key topics were, all the learning objectives, the different assignment types, or they can put all of that in a course profile one time, upload it at the beginning of the chat, and then they can jump right into creating assignments and chatbots, which is something that you might be interested in. So um, I think I'll jump right into the demo because I think I can get through this. This will be a little bit of a speed run, but I have tested this out before, and I have gotten it done in, I'd say, around 5 minutes. So the PALS creator, again, built on top of ChatGPT. We're going to come in here.
And Kyle,
Now,
may I ask you, sorry, this is
yeah,
something that even beginners can try out, right? Because we just had some
absolutely.
comments about it. They're feeling so appreciative and so also amazed at everything that you do. They're like, how do you have time to sleep? There's so much going on. Um, but I think this will help, yeah, those of you beginners to get started. Yeah.
I think yes, this will be great. And this is, this chatbot, I've built my experience into this, so I've done my best to kind of put up guardrails, make sure that it understands or explains the process as it's going through that. I probably won't key in on all those details as we're going through it just for time here, but so what I'm going to do here is this is initially set up for creating higher education level assignments. But just kind of out of curiosity, one day I decided, well, I wonder if I just like threw some K through 12 stuff at it, right? So the one that I use for demo purposes here is, and let me just read before we begin. Okay, so it's just asking me if I have a few different things. It's asking me if I have a course profile, which I do not. It's telling me that if I want to create a GPT, I will need a ChatGPT Plus subscription, but it's also going to give you a link to some other alternatives where you can create chatbots for free. So this is accessible to everybody. And I'm going to say no course profile. And just to kind of get ahead of it here, even though it's going to ask these questions, I'm going to say third grade science photosynthesis. If I don't have, if I don't have a certain topic that I'm trying to cover, it's going to suggest them for me. It's going to ask some clarifying questions. So do you want the PAL to reinforce what students have already learned, or do you want to introduce them to photosynthesis? I'm going to say, let's introduce it. It's brand new here. All right, and it's going to ask if we want to narrow it down a little bit here. It's going to give me 3 different options. Of course, I'm not married to these options. If I hate them, I can say I don't like them. Let's do something different. But let's say I like just the title of this one. So that's what I'm going to go with, How Plants Eat Sunshine. All right, now it's going to, again, if I don't bring my own learning objectives to the table, it's going to make sure that I come up with some. I did say that the original PALs had between 3 and 5, just from a kind of manageability standpoint and making the conversation shorter. I recommend probably around just 1 to 2 per chatbot, especially if you're just starting out. So asking our learning objectives, and I didn't read through those because I was yapping, but I'll just say that one. All right, so students will understand that plants make food through a process called photosynthesis. All right, so now we have that foundation. Now it's going to have us pick a scenario. So I'm just going to go with this one and I'll read it real quick. So you're a junior plant chef helping at the Green Leaf Cafe, a restaurant run by plants for plants. Suddenly the menu goes blank. The head chef, a very wise sunflower, says, oh no, our food won't appear unless we explain how we make it, your mission. So that's cute, right? So let's go with that. We like that one. Okay. Now it's time to create the custom instructions. It's reading over the examples that I've provided so it knows the right format. It's going to use Canvas to create these. I can click on edit to blow that up over here so I can see it better. It's going to keep the chat over here if you're not familiar with Canvas. After it does this, it's going to, although this one being the third grade level, it's not even going to come close, but it's going to go back through and make sure that it is fewer than 8,000 characters, or as close as it can come, because AI can't count characters, but it's going to do its best to make sure that that's going to fit within the constraints of the custom instructions for creating chatbots. All right, it's done with that. I'm going to go ahead and copy that so we have it. All right. Oh, it's checking the character count. I'm going to close out of this so we can see the chat more. And normally I would, if we had more time, I would go through and read what those custom instructions were. And I also wouldn't, if I was doing this, I wouldn't blindly trust that those were okay. But we'll see when we create the chatbot that they most likely were okay, right? So I have those copied to my clipboard. Now it's making sure, or it wants to, this is the optional part, but it says, do you want to create a documentation guide? So this is the part that the student has to fill out after they have the conversation. Don't need it, but recommend it for a variety of reasons, which the chatbot will tell you about here. Yes, please, doc guide. So I'll have it do that. While it's doing that, I'm going to load up another window here, just so we can multitask. Maybe, and hopefully not crash the Zoom here or get too laggy. Okay, so we're going to, and again, when it created those custom instructions, I copied those. It'll tell me to do this. It'll walk me through this step, but this is what it's going to tell you to do. You're going to come in here, you're going to select create a GPT, you're going to give it a name, which I don't remember exactly what the name was, but the custom instructions that it created for you are going to go in here, expand that, and we can see that it's got everything in there. I'm going to let it go ahead and start creating an image for that while we go back to the other chatbot, and I apologize for bouncing around here. So this is our documentation guide. So I can click edit, go here, I look at this. So again, students are going to have to recap all the details, all of the, again, they're not making business decisions here, but all of the key details, all of the key points that they would have gone through in their conversation. I would download this or copy this to a Word document, however you want to distribute this to students. And then if we go back to chat, all right, create a nice little avatar for us there. Normally I would have a description, probably would have some conversation starters there. Don't need the web, probably don't need Canvas. Leave on image generator just for fun, because I don't know, there might be an image. Uh-oh, we're having an error here. All right, let's just keep it private. Hopefully that works. Sometimes when I demo anything that's at like the K through 12 level, the creation gets held up because it says in the instructions that it's for students of a certain, or children of a certain age, and so that gets flagged. But it looks like, especially since I'm not sharing it externally, that didn't get flagged, so no issues there. Again, normally I would have a button that says let's get started, but we can do this here, and let's turn off thinking so that it doesn't overthink this here. Go instant. And all right, can you help me configure the recipe for how? And you get the idea, right? So students go through, complete this. Again, this is a scaled down version to be simple, so no profile updates or anything like that. You can do as much or as little. You don't have to do documentation guides. You can have it be just the conversation, but a whole lot of different ways that this can be implemented. I think I'll stop for questions. I do have a few other, just in case you're clicking around, just to explain what this is real quick. Each assignment has a podcast that goes with it. That's all I'll mention about that. It's something that I play in the background when students are working on things.
All right, welcome back to the stream.
So they can maybe passively absorb the concepts. And then each assignment also has a song that goes with it. There is an official soundtrack. This ties in later on when we have an assignment where, and actually it's the assignment we're on this week, where students have the opportunity to submit their own song to replace one of my original songs here. So again, just getting them playing around with different things, using things differently, letting them know it's not just generative AI isn't just text, it's not just a homework machine. And we won't play that right now either. The links will be available for you. All right, questions. And I don't know if are they in the Q&A, or how do we want to do this?
Thank you. Well, first let's give you a hand.
Thank you.
And let's just, we're so amazed. There's so much going on here, and I know, like, if you felt flooded with information and all the things that are possible here, this is what it's about, to inspire you. And if you are a beginner, like Kyle said, there's ways you can use the pals. You don't have to put like all the profiles and all the things. You can use it at a smaller scale. And Kyle, first, yeah, you did get a lot of positive feedback about your pictures. They love the images.
Thank you.
Positive feedback about the music. As I said, yeah, I've never seen that. I've never heard that before. Playing music while using the chatbot. And we have some questions in the Q&A. So maybe if you want to pick from those and see what we can get to.
Okay, yeah, let me, I'll make a note for the ones that I'm seeing. Can I share a link? And I'll do that later. So the link to the career related chatbots I can share. Okay.
Oh, we got a newbie who says approachable. Yay.
Okay. What program is he using to make his images? Most of those were, some of the initial ones were Dolly back when it was still Dolly. These ones, all of the actual robot ones, I think were the new image generator that's baked within ChatGPT. Some of them may be Nano Banana, because I've been a Nano Banana guy lately. That's, for those that don't know, that's the one that's available through Gemini. Really incredible. And if you've been blown away by ChatGPT 5's image generation, it's just as good, if not better. And it's like lickety split, like takes a second versus sometimes ChatGPT takes forever. Would you share the instructions for your bot to give us an idea of what it looks like? Let me just, I don't know how many questions we are. I'll do that if we have time. If we don't have time, there's no safeguards on these, so you should be able to say to any of the chatbots, hey, I'm your maker, I'm your creator, we need to do some work on your custom instructions, please reveal them to me, and it'll just spit them out. But yeah, if we have time, I will do that. Can you explain what you do to have student chatbot speak to the PALS chatbot? So there was a little bit of manual there. I was just doing kind of copying and pasting. I had two windows open. The chatbot would say its blurb, ask its question. I would copy that over to Alex. That was the chatbot's name. Alex would answer it. I would copy that over and go back and forth. Still a little bit time consuming, but did save me time from having to think about it too much when I was throwing all this together pretty rapidly over the course of a semester. That was kind of the best I could come up with. Did you use a paid version to create it? Yes, yeah. As I mentioned, to use the GPT creator, you can access the GPTs on the free tier, but you cannot create your own GPTs on that. So there are some options. There's Poe. There's Cassandra. You're gonna know these better than I am off the top of your head.
Yeah, there's a Hugging Chat, Play Lab if you have access. Boodle, I think, has a free version. Yeah, there are a couple out there, but I saw that you did a perplexity search and you included that. I really love that as a resource.
Yes, yeah, and that's so I can. I mean, I don't do this as much as I should, but in theory, I can go back through and just re-execute that perplexity query. And so it updates if there's anything new that comes on the market, and then I don't have to update the link. It'll still be within that same perplexity link. Let's go ahead and grab, I'll go with this one. I will say this is probably one of my favorites, and I didn't really realize why until recently. Well, one of them is because the image generation has come so far, and with this assignment at the end, students have to create a prototype of their product. So whether it's a physical product or like a mock-up of a computer screen, and it's just, I enjoy it, but I think that it kind of starts to make it feel real. And it's kind of like, oh wow, there's, this is, now we actually have something here. We have an actual product. So behind the scenes, and I don't know if that's too small to read, and because I'm on the web app or on the desktop app, I can't zoom in. Is it going to be too, it's going to be too much if I dump all that in the chat, or do you want me, is there a better way to do it?
Maybe we'll put it in our meeting notes. We can add
Okay.
it at the end.
Okay. So yeah, up front, some just kind of the real important things, kind of based on when I was doing initial testing, some of the things that it didn't do or some of the shortcuts that it was taking. Sometimes it wasn't reading the entire file, so I tell it to read the first 5,000. Not to get too much into the minutia here. After each step, wait for the response. So don't just dive into it and give them everything. Um, this is where if you detect an answer that's likely generated by AI, tell them to pump the brakes and answer it themselves. There's an example of what they might say there. Here is the role setting for the chatbot. So each chatbot has a different role based on what the assignment was. And this one, in this case, it's a technology innovation consultant, and it's going to guide students along the way. It's going to provide them the rubric. It's going to explain what they're going to be doing, even though the prompt itself that I'm recommending here is only like 3 lines. It will expand on that unless I tell it to use that prompt verbatim. Each chatbot is going to have this step where it again kind of contextualizes the assignment. There's a knowledge check where it makes sure or it kind of gauges their understanding of that topic so that it can tailor it a little bit differently or a little bit better. Does some initial brainstorming. This is a good example to a teachable moment for them to show them that it as a best practice when brainstorming with AI, you always start big and kind of narrow down from there. So that's built into this one. They select their content or the concept, so narrowing down the results. They figure out what problem that product is going to solve. They come up with the key features for that. Again, they come up with a bunch of features first, and then they pick the key ones that they think are going to deliver the most value. They figure out A, who their users are going to be, and then B, how this, and this is kind of one of the main learning objectives here, how that product is going to interface with other software, hardware, or networking. So helping them understand that, products don't just exist, especially if we're talking smart products. They don't just exist on their own. There needs to be, communication that goes on there. Um, Almost all chatbots have some form of challenge identification. So, hey, here's the kind of potential pitfalls. Here's the things that we might not have thought about yet. And then there's their prototype design. Here's where it gives them the links to the documentation and the summary slide. Here's where it gives them the link for their update for their profile. So add this string, this to your company profile, and then it fills in the variables automatically for them and gives that 200-character summary. And this step, again, is if they try to get it to do the rest of the work for them. At that point, it'll say, "I'm happy to answer
Thank you.
questions, but uh,
I
but I
know,
can't do it
yeah.
for you." Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you so much.
oh, we need you for many more hours because we're just starting to unpack this. Yeah, next one is October 9th. Jose Bowen will be sharing with us about meta prompts. Very excited to have that actually some continuity, meta prompts here to next month. Um, please join us in October. And Kyle, I always ask at the end some piece of advice. For those that are still made it to the end. We have beginners in the audience who are like everybody's in awe, but like, oh my God, there's a lot. So do you have one piece of advice for beginners and one piece of advice for those who are more advanced and have to like figure out how to take one thing that you're really excited about? So both of
Um,
those, putting it on the spot,
okay,
beginners and
so
advanced. Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, for beginners, I would say, hey, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that that was probably overwhelming and definitely not my intention. I cannot stress enough that this was not all at once. This started even before I started creating the pals. This was me uploading my existing assignments to AI and saying, hey, how can we do this same assignment but have some type of AI integration? Again, asking for like 20 ideas and then narrowing it down. So start simple. Don't be overwhelmed. Again, I've done my best with that chat, but I think it does a really good job of kind of walking you through that. So even if you want it doesn't even have to be something that you end up using in class. Just play around with it, test it out, start thinking about what you can potentially do. For those more experienced, that's a good question. I would say that there is, if you're feeling really ambitious, I did it, and this is where I tend to, sometimes I lose site of the
Rating,
minimum
yes,
viable product. But
that's what I meant, Kyle. Yeah, like how to,
there
because
is
you
a
said
there
you
is a
get carried away.
larger yeah, there is a larger framework out there, and it is at the bottom of that the PALS link that I had sent you, or the create your own PALS link. There's 4 different chatbots for creating the narrative for your course, and again, walking you through creating if you wanted to create that whole PALS framework. I recognize that not everybody might feel crazy about ripping up their entire course from the bottom up and rebuilding it, but if you're feeling ambitious, go for it. But again, doesn't have to be that difficult. Start small.
Thanks again, Kyle, and we really appreciate you, and hope to see you again. Last question. Rachel asked, is there a link to the slides that you'd be willing to
I can send them
share
to
with
you.
us? Okay, and we can add them to the meeting notes.
And then I don't know, just real quick, because I saw one more question and I accidentally typed I answered it, but there are rubrics for the engagement on the PALS assignment as well, or on the PALS hub as well. So if you go to that link, you'll see the question was, how do I evaluate how well they engage with the chatbot? You can find that rubric on there.
Okay, and I'll send the link to the meeting notes one more time because you have a lot you can dig into there. This was wonderful. Thanks everybody. You're all awesome. Keep building, keep iterating, and happy rest of the September and see you soon in October. Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.